going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. And some breaking news coming in the last couple of minutes at the time of recording this video. Manchester United have released a statement regarding the immediate future of Antony, who of course has been on hiatus amid the allegations posed against him. He had flown back to Brazil, his native home country, to address the allegations back there, because of course there had been allegations and actually, a police investigation going on in Brazil. He had returned to the UK, I believe in the last 24, 48 hours, back to Manchester to also assist the Greater Manchester Police in the same allegations that were against him. As I mentioned, there were two investigations going on in either country, and he now is back in the UK. And after assisting Greater Manchester Police in the investigation into those allegations made against him, Manchester United have released a statement this morning saying that he will be back at Carrington training, and he'll also be available for selection. So let's get into this statement. As we've always said here at United View, when it comes to stories that are sensitive like this, that regard not only very serious allegations made against certain players and what have you, but also legal investigations that are ongoing, you do not want to interfere or sway too much in that, and also use a story that is very sensitive and very triggering for several people, for clicks, growth, subscribers, anything like that. It's way too serious of an issue to discuss like that. But once United have released statements, we'll comment on them, give some opinion, try and get you as up to date as possible on the matter, and that indeed is what has happened this morning. So as I mentioned, Manchester United have released a statement in the last couple of minutes at the time of recording this video, and it says Manchester United have issued the following statement on Antony. It goes on to say, quote, "Since allegations were first made in June, Antony has cooperated with police inquiries both in Brazil and in the UK, and he continues to do so. As Antony's employer, Manchester United has decided that he will resume training at Carrington and be available for selection while police inquiries proceed. This will be kept under review pending further developments in the case. As a club, we condemn acts of violence and abuse. We recognise the importance of safeguarding all those involved in this situation and acknowledge the impact these allegations have on survivors of abuse." So the big sort of takeaway from that is that Antony is back. He is going to be back at Carrington. He is going to be back training, and he's also going to be back and made available for first team selection. Now, when it comes to the game tomorrow, I'm sure that Erik ten Hag most likely will be asked about Antony and his status in the press conference today. Of course, I'll be live covering that at about 2 o'clock, just after the press conference has finished, so we can bring you those quotes indeed when they happen. Obviously, he's not going to be playing tomorrow. We got a game in midweek as well. Probably, I would think, unlikely that he would play in that. Maybe we're looking at next weekend as a possibility of when he can come back into the Manchester United starting 11, or at the very least the squad, something like that. I'm somewhat surprised a little bit that it's been this fast. I mean, it only really was, a couple of weeks ago during the international break that all of this started to really raise its head. It was after the Arsenal game. The last game he played for Manchester United was that Arsenal game at the Emirates prior to the international break, and then really a story that had been sort of simmering around. The allegations were there on sort of social media and in interviews and things of that nature, primarily in Brazil, I think at the time, had been there, and then they really started to explode. And then it came out that it wasn't just one person, there were several people putting allegations towards him. And then there was, as I mentioned, sort of TV interviews, both from the accusers and also from Antony himself back in Brazil. There were leaked messages, there were WhatsApp DMs, all this kind of stuff was going on. So when Manchester United announced that Antony was going to be sort of taking a hiatus, I mean, it's important to stress that he wasn't suspended by Manchester United like anything like that. He was on leave, which I believe was a paid leave as well. And the way that Manchester United had phrased it at the time is that he was sort of having this hiatus, being on this leave to sort of address these allegations and sort of figure things out essentially as to what was going on. Now, since then, there have been reports and stories put out there that he has been cooperating with police in Brazil. Obviously, it was quite widely reported yesterday that he was, as I mentioned, back in the UK. He had flown back, I believe it was in the last 24 to 48 hours, and was assisting the Greater Manchester Police in those investigations as well. It's important to point out still that this is still an active and ongoing investigation. There hasn't been reports to suggest that either investigation has been stopped or dropped or anything like that. That might be the conclusion that they head to. It might not. It might not be. As Manchester United have said in their statement, this is going to be a thing that's constantly under review. As of right now, he's not been charged with anything or anything like that. But as Manchester United say, quote, this will be kept under review pending further developments in the case. Which, I mean, again, I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not trying to suggest that I am by any stretch of the imagination. I would assume that his status in the squad and his status, you know, as someone that's actively participating in first team training, in matches, etc., is going to very much depend on, again, which way these kind of accusations or allegations go. Now, you could speculate and maybe suggest that maybe Manchester United feel comfortable with his sort of current legal status as to where this whole thing might be going to bring him back, considering what happened with the whole Mason Greenwood situation this year and the way that was really badly handled. It was botched in terms of the plans leaking out, and then suggestions that was just one of several plans that was considered, and then the statement that was released and put out there after that, and just the whole debacle that was in terms of Manchester United's handling of it from a public relations point of view, from a victim point of view, from an investigation point of view, in terms of the way that some of the Manchester United employees and players felt about the situation, all of it, regardless of your opinion, whether it was right or wrong or whatever United's decision was, your opinion on it, it was handled very badly. So you would think that Manchester United would be incredibly cautious to ensure that they get this one right from a point of view of protecting everyone involved, their employee, the victim alleged in this case, and everyone surrounding the club too, and everyone involved in the club as well. So they must feel, one would think, fairly comfortable with the current situation, but this is going to be an ongoing situation. Again, there are still investigations that are ongoing, but as of right now, his current status is that he's going to be training and he's going to be available for team selection, not immediately. He'll probably take a couple of weeks to get back up and running again, and then Manchester United will have another player available, which, you know, considering some of the accusations, can seem a bit trivial. But as of right now, as I mentioned, he's not been charged with a crime. There are investigations that are ongoing. He's not out on bail or anything like that. He's not been arrested. Again, these are just active investigations, and he's, as mentioned, been cooperating with the investigations right now. Maybe that's why Manchester United are comfortable with the current position. I don't know. But they've just suggested that, again, his while these police inquiries will be proceeding, his status, whether it be training and being available for selection, will be kept under review pending these further developments in the case. They do stress, as I mentioned, as a club, they condemn acts of violence and abuse and recognise the importance of safeguarding all those involved in the situation and acknowledge the impact these allegations have on survivors of abuse as well. So that is the latest developments when it comes to Antony. Another statement by Manchester United, not really long after that first statement about him was put out there. I mean, I think this is the third one at this point. There was the first one that kind of recognized the allegations made against him, and they were aware of it and they were kind of looking into it. I believe then the second one was that he was taking this hiatus. He was taking a leave of absence. I can't remember the actual terminology of how they phrased it at the time, but essentially it was a leave of absence to address these allegations made against him. And now the latest update is that he is going to be back. He's going to be back training, and he's also going to be back available for selection. I don't know. They don't say in the statement when he's going to be back at Carrington, i.e. is he going to be back today? Is it going to be next week? What have you? Again, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait for what Erik ten Hag says. I think more information will come out today once Erik ten Hag is asked about this in the press conference, because inevitably he will be asked about this in the press conference, and we might have some more information then. So that's the latest update when it comes to Antony. As I mentioned, if the club releases any more information, any more statements, that's when is the appropriate time to discuss this, as has always been the case here on the channel. So if we get any more official words from Manchester United, we'll let you know in future videos. And as I mentioned, I'll be back with the press conference later today, seemingly with more information once Erik ten Hag is asked about it in the press conference. Have a good morning, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.